Good morning and welcome to TipRanks News Bites. I'm Ari Gutman and we have a lot of economic news to unpack for you today. The most anticipated news on the day, the Federal Reserve's F.O.M.C meeting minutes are going to be released later on this afternoon. The yield curve has now officially inverted again, which is quite an alarming economic indicator for investors. And finally, President Biden is now at odds on whether or not to actually relax tariffs on Chinese imports. Well, the long-anticipated release of the Federal Reserve's minutes from their recent policy-setting meeting will finally become available for investors to sift through come 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Fed's tone has been, of course, rather hawkish for some time now, as Fed Chair Powell leads the charge against inflation with a very strong commitment to chop inflation back down to 2%. We can expect that the overall tone from the minutes is going to be rather aggressive, and investors are surely going to be looking for clues on how the Fed ultimately made that decision to raise the federal funds target rate by 75 basis points, which is triple the standard rate increase of 25 basis points. Now, even more importantly here, the minutes may reveal policymakers' thoughts on future rate hikes and whether the Fed is going to be moving slower if signs of inflation with economic data depicts deceleration. However, we can't forget that the minutes released today are reflective of the Fed's thoughts from last month. Therefore, their current tone and plan of action could already have changed with the current data sets. Either way here, it is a report that could surely rattle the markets. In other economic intensive news, the closely watched U.S. yield curve has once again inverted. Just yesterday, 2-year treasuries popped above the 10-year treasuries, which is known as yield curve inversion. Now, what exactly does that mean for all of us? Well, first of all, yield curve inversion suggests that investors are expecting higher short-term rates, but when those short-term rates are increased, banks tend to raise benchmark rates across the board for a wide range of consumer and commercial loans like mortgages, small business loans, and even those rates on your credit card. And not to panic anyone here, but the US curve has inverted before all but one recession since 1955, with a recession following between 6 to 24 months thereafter, according to a report published by the San Francisco Fed back in 2018. So keep your eyes on the curve, and if you haven't been already, continue to tread with cautious optimism. And finally, our last news bite for you today. President Joe Biden is at odds with whether or not to proceed in relaxing tariffs on Chinese imports to play his card at alleviating inflationary pressures on U.S. consumers. Of course, there is a political twist here in that relaxing those tariffs may very well result in criticism for being too soft on China, but Biden seems to be in favor of the move, and reports are coming in that the meeting between Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and Chinese Vice Premier was all in regards to tariffs. Now, time will tell, but it remains clear that fighting inflation is on everyone's list of priorities. Tip Rankers, that's our news for today. As always, be sure to stay connected and stay up to speed with TipRanks TV, all of the shows you just can't afford to miss. Now, until next time, thank you for tuning in.